have to be really careful on what I say. Boy, I was going to use a political campaign slogan of Ron Paul, that revolution is here. And I thought, boy, I better not say that, because there's another story today about the IRS that I find amazing. Here it is. Homeland Security spends $80 million on guards to protect against domestic unrest. And the guards are around the IRS buildings now. And why would the DHS feel the need to blow $80 million at a time, cutbacks, and more guards to protect government buildings for public demonstrations? What is the federal agencies preparing for? Food stamp riots, anti-IRS demonstrations, or other civil disobedience? I found this interesting. Arkansas State Fusion Center Director Richard Davis admitted that the federal agency spies on Americans deemed to be anti-government, noting the DHS concentrates on domestic terrorism and certain groups that are anti-government. What has many congressmen deemed people like us? Anti-government. Harry Reid over and over and over again. These people are just anti-government. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're pro-government. We're fine with the government. We're not fine with corruption. It is time for new thinking. It is time for revolutionary thought. It is time for us to not be sheep anymore. But because of this health care, I mean, do you know that Consumer Reports, has this been reported? Consumer Reports is now saying don't even go on the website. Did you know that? Consumer Reports is saying it's so bad, don't even go.
And based on your comment before about they have Jon Stewart on the phone, right after they did that, Consumer Reports was, well, we don't mean there's any problem with the service at all. We just mean the website is bad.
Jon Stewart is going to be the first one to find out, I bet you. I'll bet you he's going to be the first one to find out on how bad things are. I think Jon Stewart there's a possibility. Maybe they all, because everybody wants to be invited to the right parties and everybody wants to be in on the in club. But if Jon Stewart decides, I'm not going to take this, he's just celebrity enough to say, I'm not going to take this. And if he decides to go that way, he will see the wrath. And he'll be the first one to see, oh no, you're not coming out of this little box that we have you in. It's a different world, gang, and 99% of people have not recognized it yet. I challenge you to be who you were born to be. I challenge you to embrace the fear. And you know what? Just at the point that you're about to give up, that's when everything changes. Now, why is that? People will tell you all the time, yeah, and I was just about to give up, and then something happened. Stu, how long did I look for an agent? 2 years? Trying to get a talk radio job?
Yeah, it was a long time.
2 years, 3 years? I'm just about to give up. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The week that I gave up, George Hiltzik, biggest agent in all of radio, calls me. Stu, remember the conference, remember the studio where you and I had that unfortunate conversation where I was not so happy down in Tampa? And you had said to me...
A lot of those. But.
I know, but try to just narrow it down.
Okay.
You said to me, I said, the first day we were ever on the air, we're going to replace Dr. Laura. And and you wisely said, why don't we finish the first show, you crazy man? And then we were down in Tampa, and this was years later, 5 years later. And I said, I feel it. And you, in a very righteous moment, I don't mean to make you sound like you were the bad guy in this, because you weren't. Because you were arguing about something with your wife, and you were right. And I was wrong in being selfish. But you said, you know what? You've been saying that for a long time. Where's the evidence of any of that? When is that going to happen? And I said, I'm telling you, it's here. Just at the point that Stu was about to give up. And rightly so, because there was no... I don't mean it to sound that way.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, you were right for the reason. I don't want to get into all the reasons.
Sure.
But you were right for all the reasons. But just at the point that he was about to give up, it happened. Don't give up. In fact, I urge you to risk. I urge you to do the crazy thing. I urge you to do... boy, in this world, better preface that. I mean, they can call us monsters, killers, terrorists, and everything else, but I better not say that out of context. I urge you to do the non-violent crazy thing. I urge you, just when it seems like we should be paying attention to something else, you pay attention to what the Spirit tells you to pay attention to. You walk a different way. But we are printing $80 billion a month, every month, and we have now for the last year and a half. And they talked about 2 months ago about easing up on the quantitative easing, and not even $5 billion could they. Stock market fell apart, everything fell apart. Well, that's because you're addicted to heroin now. And they will continue to do it. At the top of the hour, we will show you the latest, not 80 billion, but now they're talking about 150, 250 billion, $1 trillion a month.
Turn it up. It's Glenn Beck on the radio.
The fusion of entertainment and enlightenment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
I want to play a piece of audio from Mark Faber. Mark Faber was on CNBC. He's a financial analyst. And he's not known for being, Mr. Sunshine. But I will tell you this. I think this is accurate. Listen to what he said on CNBC.
Every government program that is introduced under urgency and as a temporary measure is always permanent.
Stop.
And in my view...
I want you to understand that.
Very true.
Look at the TSA. Mm-hmm. Look at almost everything.
Social Security,
Medicare,
Medicaid.
You can even say the
tax.
FCC. Everything was introduced for temporary, emergency, and then it just becomes a way of life, and it's never going away. He's talking about the Fed and quantitative easing, and if you don't know what quantitative easing means, you're not alone. Most people don't know what it means because the media has never really explained it in clear terms. Because once they explain it in clear terms and Americans really find out what it is, then the whole thing falls apart. But you have to be ahead of the curve. Because first comes quantitative easing, then comes hyperinflation. When you hear the words rehypothecation, hyperinflation will follow. And the end of the dollar. So he's talking about quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is just fancy, progressive bullcrap talk for printing money. Something that the Fed said under oath they would never do. And so they didn't. They digitized money. They actually haven't been printing the money. They just digitize $85 billion a month and throw it out into the system. They give it to their banks. $85 billion a month in bogus money. And how do they do this? Well, they buy our treasuries. Nobody will buy our debt anymore. This is the other thing that the press has been horrible on telling you. No one will buy our debt. China doesn't believe in the United States of America anymore. Remember just 5 years ago when I said China will come to a point where they'll stop buying debt? And then they will start to deleverage. They'll start to lay foundations of escape routes, and they will slowly deleverage. All of this is now happening. And when I said it at first, it was crazy talk. And a guy who really has to feel right on everything about the Fed is Ron Paul. An hour with Ron Paul tonight at 5 o'clock. You don't want to miss it. A full hour with Ron Paul. One-on-one. I don't think it's ever... not that I know of. I don't think I've ever even met him. I've had him on the show several times, but this is in the same room and face-to-face for a full hour. And boy, that guy should feel right. And unfortunately, it's kind of like those things that I've always said. I don't want to be right. I'm sure he didn't want to be right. But they said they would never print, and so they didn't. They digitized. Now listen to the prediction of quantitative easing. He's saying once the Fed starts something like this, they're never going to get off it. What he's not saying is he's comparing this to all other government programs. This one is addictive. No one can or ever has gotten off of this. Once you start this train, it never turns around. And it is the suicide train. It is the end of every monetary system in the history of the world. And listen to what he says.
The Fed has boxed themselves into a position where there's no exit strategy. The question is not tapering. The question is at what point will they increase the asset purchases?
Oh, good.
To say 150, 200, $1 trillion a month. That is the question.
$1 trillion a month.
And it's true.
That's a pretty frightening prospect.
Because here's what's happening. And remember, what people didn't pay attention to is this new woman, Yellen. She is going to replace Ben Bernanke. And so you understand, here's how the Federal Reserve Bank works. There's 12 Federal Reserve heads. And it is a private corporation. It is a corporation of banks. We don't even know who the banks are. We're not even allowed to see which banks. We don't know which banks are involved. We don't know their records. We don't have access to their financial statements. There's no audit. There's nothing. It's just this mystery machine that makes money. And somehow or another, we've been convinced to be okay with that. And the way they've convinced us is to make you a conspiracy theorist if you ever say anything about the Fed. Oh, you're into the shadowy operation. No, you've made a shadowy operation. We don't even know who you are. Just tell us who you are. Let's open your books. Well, they can't open their books because they're now the largest owner of U.S. debt. More than China. Now, I know what China makes. A bunch of lead-painted toys that they ship all around the world. I know what China makes. What does the Fed make? Well, how does the Fed make that much money that they can buy the lion's share of our debt when China can't? Well, the reason why they can do it is because they know all of the banks are toast. If the United States goes down, they go down. All of the banks are toast. Everybody loses money. And so they need more time to be able to come up with this basket of currencies and everything else. They are preparing. They are finding an exit strategy, but not one for you. You notice Mark said there is no exit strategy here. And it's true. It's a total reset at the end. And for the very first time, it will be for the entire world. When Germany did this, they did it to themselves. They didn't do it to the rest of the world. They did it to themselves. And think how much all of us hated Germany. We're about to do it for the very first time to the entire world. And this is why China is now buying 5,000 tons of gold. They are setting up the yuan or the yuan? The yuan. The yuan. Mm-hmm. They're setting up the yuan, some believe, to be the world's currency. I'm not sure that China even survives this. It'd be nice if there was a global reset and we all went down together. It wouldn't be so bad if we all went down, but that's not the way it's going to work. Not everybody's going to go down. There's too much money at stake, too many resources at stake. So instead of printing this money, which has nothing to back it up, the full faith and credit of the United States, I don't have the faith in the United States of America. Look at did you see that, what was the latest country that just came out? Mexico. There's another one today. Mexico came out yesterday or 2 days ago and said the NSA was spying on their president. France was the next one. France is saying the same thing, too. We're spying on their president. What'd you say, Jeffy?
I was just wondering, it's just why that's coming out now. I mean, we all kind of agree that probably goes on. I'm just
the France one was a new Edward Snowden story from Greenwald in one of the French papers, talking about how they had intercepted 70 million communications in 30 days, something ridiculous like that. And all these countries are getting more and more. I mean, as much as they understand, everyone I think knows tactical nuke is.
You know where a tactical nuke is going to go? Is at some point, some country with a tactical nuke, like Russia, it will go right into that NSA bunker. Because that NSA bunker will have all of the world's secrets. That's why that thing is buried so deep into the ground. That's not for, oh, well, it's easier to keep things cool or whatever. That thing is buried in the side of a mountain because that has the world's secrets. That site, in very short order, will be the most precious site of information over the National Archives. You know, our Declaration of Independence and everything else, that used to seal underneath, so it could take a ground zero hit. I'll bet you the NSA headquarters is prepared for a ground zero hit as well. Because at some point, some country is going to say, okay, you know what? Enough. I've had enough of this. Do you know that it's called I think it's Zimmerman's Law. I just looked this up last night. Technology, spy technology, surveillance technology. On the average American, the technology doubles now every 18 months. Their ability to track and listen to you doubles every 18 months. Think about how you have gone to your GPS and you have started to type in your home address and you get 3 digits in and it says, is this your home address? And you're like, yes. How did it know? Stu, just happened to Stu the other day.
Yeah, it just happened with me with the new iPhone thing. And you type in, I typed in the first 3 digits of my address. It filled it all in. And I was like, I didn't have that saved in here. Why did it do that? Because I had a Amazon delivery to that same address. And it searched the phone, found the Amazon delivery, and just plugged it in for me. Now, it was certainly helpful. But, I mean, you just don't think about how much of your information is out there and where it is and who has access to it.
There's no place to go. There's no place to go, no place to hide. No, there's nothing. It's all out there. Now, double this from where we are. Think of that. This is why you say you're approaching the singularity. Double the technology to surveil and to track your location. Think about their ability to do that today. Double that a year and a half from now. And then double it again a year and a half later. Think of during the next presidential election, the technology that they will have to be able to track the voters. Who's going where? It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. If you were really serious about not having the United States of America drown, here's what you would do. If you wanted it to survive, you would say, look, gang, we have to stop on some of these spending things, but it's so much deeper than that now. We are in deep, deep trouble. And so the first thing I'm going to do, and I know this is unpopular, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm putting up all the land for sale. All the land that the United States government owns. We're going to put it up for sale first to everybody in the United States. You have to be a citizen to buy it. And I mean everything. We're going to put up all our national parks. We're going to put up everything. Now, here's the first squabble. The first squabble will be the states will say, wait a minute, you can't do that. You took that land from us in the first place. That land belongs to me. You're telling me that Wyoming's not going to say, excuse me, part of that park belongs to me, not you. So there'll be all kinds of legal squabbles. But you put that land up for sale. And maybe you put that land up for sale first to everybody in the state. And you give the states a piece of it. But that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is you say, you get somebody out there to estimate how much money do we have in shale? How much money do we have in coal? How much money do we have in South Dakota? And you say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this shale, this coal, dig it as fast as you can. Or, and I hate to say this because this opens up a whole can of worms, but think out of the box for a second. You nationalize, because if it's on federal land already, they've already done it. You can't take any more land, but if they've already taken it, if they've already got the land, say everything underneath this, private industry can go and take. Who's highest bidder? Who wants this hill? Go take it. And you find a survey on how much is estimated underneath that thing, and you sell it. You could pay off the national debt. They say the United States is worth, there's no way to make this because there's only, $60 trillion in currency in the world. Now, by the end of the week, maybe 65 trillion. But there's only so much currency in the world. But they say the United States is worth, or just our land and our assets underneath the land, it's about $150 trillion. We need 17. All the assets that this government holds, all of these assets, all of this land, sell it. Sell it. If you could take $5 trillion off of the national debt, you would send a message to the world we were serious. And that would stabilize our country. And that's the kind of thinking that we need. We need not somebody who is going there and saying, well, we're going to reduce by 2%. No. We need $10 trillion off this debt, and we need it off this debt right now. And not funny money, not bullcrap. You want to turn things around? Good. You know what, Russia? Because we're never going to use it. We're never going to use it. You can buy all of that oil at the top of Alaska. You want it? You buy it, because we'll never use it. Oh, well, we got to save it for the animals. To hell with that. There's nothing left. If you want to do it and do it right, then good. Let's go drill up there, and we'll keep the animals safe. And we'll do it the right way. If you're not going to do it before we lose it to China and whoever else comes and takes it at the barrel of a gun, we're selling it. And that's all there is to it. It's time for an adult to step up into the room and say, guys, this is what we're doing. Well, I don't want to sell. I know. But every single father in the history of the world has had to look at his family at some point and said, kids, we are moving. We are moving. I'm sorry. Dad lost his job. Mom has had a hard time. Enough is enough. We're selling the house because we have no choice, and it will be okay. That's who I'm looking for. Anybody know that person? You let me know, because that's who I'll back. Somebody who has the courage of their conviction and an actual solution, not a nibbling around the edges. And Ron Paul is here tonight. He says 25% of the American population needs to homeschool. I'm with him.